James. Actually, we're going to be starting our show. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it on Tuesdays. Today, I'm going to be solo and hosting solo today. So definitely, but we have an exciting show planned. And as I introduce myself, I always introduce myself as you'll find me in the corner of working on myself, lean and inspiring others to drive. Yes, that's where you're going to find me all the time. Yes, so let's go. So happy New Year, happy 2026. Today's Tuesday. We always say we're taking over Taco Tuesdays. Let's talk about it Tuesday. So today we're going to dive into a great show. Our co-host of the is actually missing Mr. William Burties. He's actually tied up, but at the same time too, we wanted to keep it going. He definitely gave me his blessing to keep it going. All right. So as we start, I know before we ended the year in 2025, one of the things that we ended our show on was purpose. And we dived into how you go after your purpose, what does that mean, and also how you follow your passion, right? But at the same time, too, we want to continue on around that same topic because as we start the year, yes, everybody's setting goals, everybody's setting their strategies, their systems, everybody's putting things in place to go after. Now, how are we going to accomplish that? At the same time, too, we've always seen the same trend, which is you start off with a lot of momentum, a big bang, and then it fizzles out as we get to the end of the year or we get to the middle of the year, right? But we want to encourage you that with this show today that to keep going, right? And how we can keep going because the title of the show today is number one, how to get rid of your old life because everybody wants to start anew, right? And I always say there's 3 keys on the keyboard that applies to your life when you want to start moving forward or get a new screen, or get a new or you want to get a new screen on your computer. It's called Control Alt Delete your old life, right? So yes, it's called Control Alt Delete your old life, and that's how we're going to actually start off this show is by showing people how to actually control the way they think, right? Alter their life and delete the past. Yes, that's what we're going in today. Is how to control or delete your old life. So as we start the year, we just celebrated an important holiday which was yesterday, which was Martin Luther King Day, right? It wasn't a day off. For some people, it was a day on, right? Because a lot of people actually did have to work that day too. Because a lot of people, even though it was a holiday, some people actually had to go out and actually serve the community, right? Because that's what that day we see that day as being about. But at the same time too, we want you all to understand that in life you have to be calm but intentional. There's no rush, So you have to set the mood and let the silence breathe. So what that really means is saying is that number one, as we celebrate Martin Luther King Day, Martin Luther King Jr. was not just a historical figure, but in the case study of passion, we want to reflect. He did not chase comfort, right? He didn't chase a lot of comfort in his life because being in his position was very uncomfortable, right? And one of the things that when you're going after your passion, you're going after your dream, you're going to have to become very comfortable being uncomfortable. Think about the things that back then that they had to go through, right, to get to where we are, to make sure that we are here where we are today, right? It was very uncomfortable for them, but they had to become very comfortable being in uncomfortable situations and places and things, right? He didn't wait to feel ready. He had to take charge, and he had to go after what he wanted to go after. It's like it's kind of like a lot of times somebody always told me this, you're shadow boxing your mind about what you want to do in life, right? You can't be shadow boxing all the time. You just got to take charge and you got to go after it, right? That's the only way you're going to be able to accomplish a couple of things in life that you want to accomplish, especially the things that are tough, right? So you have to actually be able to no, you can't wait to feel ready. You just got to go at it. The best logo you can ever, or logo that has ever been made, they say is the Nike logo because of what it says behind it. It says, just do it, right? Everything takes one step. So you gotta always be in that place, in that mindset where you just want to go do it, right? And he didn't argue for his limitations, right? You never saw him on stage arguing about his limitations. He had a dream, right? The most famous speech of Martin Luther King was, "I have a dream," right? He didn't argue about all the limitations of that dream. He had a vision, he had a plan, and he was putting it out there to be executed by. Not he knew. I would say he might not have known that he wasn't going to be able to see it happen, but at the same time too, he put it out there so that it could be manifested with us, the future, right? So those are some of the things, because one of the things I've come to understand about this life is that as long as you argue and fight for your limitations, you will always get them. That's one of the things that I had to realize in my life, is that I can't always be arguing about my limitations and arguing about what I don't have and what I can't accomplish and the things that are keeping me back. I can't, right? I mean, there's a time for that, yes, but we have to actually recognize what's reality. But at the same time, too, we have the power to change that reality, right? It's so as long as you argue and fight for your limitations, just keep in mind you always get them. So I always tell everyone, especially like when I'm a real estate broker, and I tell my first time home buyers, buying a home in San Diego is one of the biggest goals that you can ever have. Right now, the cost of a home is like a life changing amount of expense, which is over $500,000. That's the average cost. It's over $500,000. So when you think about that, and that might be the biggest expense you'll ever spend in your life, you got to look at it like, hey, that's something that you want to accomplish. So I was always argue when people say, hey, I can't do it and this it's too expensive. I'll say, well, one of the things my goal and my purpose is as a real estate broker and why I got into this business is to help people fulfill their dreams, right? I'd rather you argue for your dreams and for your goals than to argue for those limitations. So it's shifting that mindset, which is you're arguing for, we want to fight, we want to go to battle for your dreams and your goals, not your limitations, all right? So we want to shift that energy, all right? So ask yourself out loud, what dream am I defending excuses against instead of defending what actions? So take action, shift that energy, take some action. In my life, I have a mission statement, and I could say clearly, right? So, I mean, you got to develop a mission statement. And anytime you find any doubt or obstacles or things that you feel are going to hold you back, you want to repeat that mission statement, right? And I'm going to say my mission statement, all right? And I always tell myself all the time, number one, I have a couple of them, but this is the one that I always say, God's made me a powerful, resourceful force in this world to reckon with, right? If you tell yourself your mission statement, it doesn't have to be something that you want to accomplish, but tell yourself something that you know, because you are made by, if you believe in God, you understand that He made you, right? That means He made you to accomplish amazing things in this life, right? You can't be replicated, so you're very unique. So always understand that. God's made you with a lot of power. You just got to tap into that, right? So passion versus comfort. That's what we're going, what we got to look at, right? We have to understand that purpose always demands you to be uncomfortable, right? It's never, comfort is the enemy of success, they say. If you're comfortable in a situation, right, if it's too comfortable, number one, most likely you're not growing, right? That's what they always say. It's like growth is very tough. When a tree grows out of the ground, it's a violent action we don't see. Just keep that in mind, because it's digging into the ground. You're seeing those roots. It's planting its roots first before it grows, because as the roots grow, as a tree grows, the roots grow deeper, right? So it creates that stability. That's why a tree stands a lot of through the test of time, right? It stands. It's resilient against weather changes, right? So one of the things is this: Obstacles are always reminders that a goal has been set and you're doing the things that are right. So when you run into an obstacle, right, it's just like the tree, as I mentioned, the tree has a purpose, right? In order for it to accomplish its purpose, it has to grow. And in order for it to grow, it has to actually dig deep. It has to actually grow thicker skin, right? It has to grow taller. All these things are going to be able to make it live its purpose. It's just like us. We have a purpose. And there are going to be obstacles guaranteed in your life, right? There are going to be obstacles that will make you question whether or not this is for you, right? It's going to make you feel like, oh, you should give up, right? But just keep in mind, those obstacles are just signals, just like the tree growing out of the earth, and digging its roots deeper into the ground, into the hard ground, right? It's just telling you that a goal has been set. You have to keep on moving. You have to keep on growing up, right? And just like Martin Luther King didn't see opposition as proof he was wrong. He saw it as proof he was just early, right? So that's one of the things that I want to emphasize. It's kind of like, because it was Martin Luther King Day yesterday, we want to actually kind of see what he did and how he followed his purpose and how he accomplished his purpose with a passion, right? We can take that same route too, right? Now, faith without works is dead, as James 2, verse 17, right? So passion is an emotion. Passion is discipline showing up daily, right? So that's one of the things that we've come to recognize. That's right. We talked about passion last show, the last show of the year, right? And what we have come to realize is, yes, passion is discipline showing up daily, right? Do the things that you know you're supposed to do daily, right? Discipline is basically doing the things that you don't feel like doing on a daily basis, right? Nobody feels like going to work. Nobody, if you ask anybody, what's your passion, it's not going to be working, right? But we have to, because you know what? If we go to work, there's rewards for that. And then on top of that, it makes us better at what we do, right? So if you do something over and over again, it's just how our bodies were built and how our minds were built. We get better at it, right? So number one, passion is discipline just showing up daily, right? So there's going to be I always say there is an expiration date on motivation. Motivation is never going to be there all the time, right? You have to find that motivation on a daily basis or you have to be able to switch it over to where it becomes automatic, and that's called discipline, right? So doing the things on a daily basis and showing up daily. You don't get in life what you want, you get in life who you are. You see, as you become disciplined, right, it changes who you are, right? It's just like anything in life. It changes how you think. Like I always say, like if you go to school for 4, 5, 6 years, right, you are going to look back and see where you were when you first started, which was hard, to where you are at now, right? A lot of people could never regret learning something new that they can apply to their life, right? Now, if you go after your goal, right, and you work hard at it, and you don't even accomplish it, just understand one thing, is that you just became better, right? You didn't fail, you got better, right? Now, as you'll see the improvement in your life. It doesn't matter if you reach that goal or if you didn't. But if you work hard for it, you're going to be downloading some new skills, some new abilities, some new ways of thinking, some new ways of critical thinking, some new ways of actually solving problems. And what is that going to translate into? It's you becoming a better person, a better version of yourself, right? So there's no loss in you going after something, all right? So just keep that in mind. So that's why I say you don't get out of life what you want, you get out of life who you are. Because if you have discipline on a daily basis, it's going to change who you are, all right? Ask yourself, who am I being on an average every day? Who am I being on an average every day? If my habits were audited, what future would they predict? right? So a lot of people have to ask themselves this question on a daily basis. It's like, if they would have ordered it's tax season coming up soon, right? And a lot of us are going to have to do our taxes. Now, to do our taxes, we tend to figure out where our businesses are and what we need to do to actually get better or improve or we scale, right? These are things that, number one, when we audit our actions on a daily basis, it can tell us where we're heading in the future. See, the blueprint for success has always been laid out. We don't have to create a new wheel or a new blueprint. We just follow the blueprint for success a lot of times, right? So if we audit it based upon people who have already laid a path for us to be successful, right? If we audit it based upon what they're doing, it would tell us what we need to improve on or where we're heading, right? All right, so identity, power, and ownership, right? Personal power is never lost, only given away, right? That is something that I would say yes. Personal power is never lost. As I said, once you tap into really understand the power we have, and we understand that we're created by God, right? We understand that number one, the personal power is never lost. It's only given away. And why I say that is because anywhere in your life, you're not getting what you want, means you've handed your personal power to someone else, right? Because wherever you go, there you are. You can change your geography. You can change your location. You can change anywhere you go. Whatever habits you have is going to be there with you, right? So it's kind of like, number one, your power. You have the ability to tap into that power anytime. It doesn't matter your location. You know, there's a whole thing, and send me your location, right? So the thing about it, if you send somebody your location and they show up and you're not there, right? That means you were never there, right? You're not physically there. But if you're physically there, they're coming. This is who you are. This is where you are, right? They're coming to meet you physically in the physical form, right? Not a image of you, right? They're not coming to meet an image of you. They're coming to meet you. So wherever you go, who you are. So anywhere you are in life, and you're not getting what means what you want, that means you're handing your power away. Somebody else is determining how they use your power, right? So the unconscious mind doesn't process negatives. Just keep that in mind, right? So when we say wherever you have the power to tap into your power, just keep in mind it's something where your mind and how you think, it never processes negatives. And I'll give you a big example, right? If I tell you, don't think of a pink elephant, right? So I say, hey, don't think of a pink elephant. Most likely, you're going to have to think about that pink elephant, right? In order for you to actually not think about it, right? So you see how your mind, your conscious mind doesn't process negatives, right? And when I learned that, I was like, oh, so the thoughts and the negative thoughts that I have, or the fears I have, are manufactured in my head. Just keep that in mind. You are in control of that. So whatever you download and you think is going to happen, right? Most likely it's not, because you're creating that situation for yourself. Now, I'm not saying not to be self-aware, right? Because if you see a lion, you can't say that lion is not real, you know what I'm saying, and walk straight into it, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, too, if you create an image of something that you fear, it's not there, right? So you got to understand that your mind doesn't process negatives. You process that. So those voices that are in your head that are negative, you got to stop. You got to lower the volume on that, right? That's basically what it's saying. So your mind always, it moves towards what you repeatedly impress upon it, right? So that's basically what I'm saying. It's like, what do you repeatedly think about, right? Or what think about is life, I believe, is an 80-20, right? So what you think about 80% of the time will produce most of your results. It's like you're bringing in that energy. So always check yourself on what you're thinking about consistently. Is it fear, right? Or is it faith, right? So you have to shift a lot of the thinking in terms, and that's where it starts, right? Um, See, and there's a saying that repetition deepens the impression, right? You can't chop a tree down by hitting it 1,000 times, right? And basically, as I said, just keep in mind what I said. You can't chop a tree down by hitting it 1,000 times because if you're not hitting it consistently in one place 1,000 times, right? That's the difference. Is by hitting that, focusing, and hitting that tree in the same spot 1,000 times. You have a high probability of bringing it down than hitting it everywhere on that tree. So you have to be able to be repetitive, but also make sure that you're focused on what you need to do. Focusing on the things that you know, the goal that you want to accomplish. Focus on the destination that you want to be at, and consistently go after the things that you want to, that destination every day, right? So that's why it says repetition deepens the impression. So ask for what purpose and not why, right? For what purpose am I holding on to these excuses, right? So, I mean, everything that you do has a reason behind it. We all make choices every day. The choice is something that is so powerful in our lives that we tend to overlook, right? But the main thing is this, is for what purpose am I holding on to these excuses when I have to actually do something? Or why am I, it's not why, but for what purpose? So you understand the reason when you ask that question is that you're shifting the way you think about your time. Every minute of the day, there's a purpose for it. Your time is very valuable. That's one of the things that you don't get back in life, right? You can be a billionaire and you still can't buy more of it, right? So we are all given the same 24 hours a day. Everybody is. Nobody gets 25 and nobody gets 23, right? Unless it's the end of their time here, right? So what we got to ask is for what purpose, right? Am I holding on to these excuses or not doing the things I'm supposed to do, right? And then you understand, hey, there's a purpose behind the time that I have. Let me use it to going after my purpose or doing what I know is purposeful. For what purpose am I staying small, right? So a lot of people tend to stay small because that's their comfort zone, right? As I mentioned, comfortable is the enemy a lot of times of success, right? So the thing about it is that we have to ask, why am I staying small? Why am I staying at one level, right? And oftentimes I ask myself that. Why am I staying at this level? Why am I not challenging myself? I had to learn that, you know what? If it's uncomfortable for me, most likely it might be good for me, right? Because at the end of the day, it still comes down to my choice of how I see it and what I'm going to learn from that, right? Because I always have the discussion with people. What's hard in life and what's good is usually one and the same. A lot of the good things we have to do is hard, right? Because it's not hard to be successful. Think about it. Think about an Olympic athlete, right? They have to train, like say, let's use what's his name, Usain Bolt as an example, right? He's from the Caribbean. I mean, he's one of the only ones at the top of my head because he has held the record in the 100 meters and the 200 meters, right? So let's think about Usain Bolt. One of the things I remember him saying is that he had to go to training. He trained almost every 300 and over 300 days a week. I mean, a year, over 300 days a year to actually run and compete for 9 seconds. So think about it. He broke the record by actually, I think it was under 10 seconds. He ran the 100 meters. So think about it. He trained over 300 days a year, right? And just keep in mind that the Olympics is every 4 years, right? So he trained 300 over 300 days a year for 4 years just to compete for 9 seconds. So when you really think about it, it's how crazy that boils down to, right? So you got to understand your time is so valuable because number one, what he's doing is actually becoming or changing something about himself, right? Because he's figured out, okay, well, what purpose am I doing these things for? Right? What is the goal in mind? It's for me to break the record, right? So now, just think about it. So they put their time and their effort into doing things consistently, right? So that when that time comes, right, they actually can actually win or they can actually be successful. Now, if he didn't win it, doesn't mean that it was all for nothing. Why? Is because number one, a lot of the things and disciplines he downloaded in his life changed. There's not much people in this world who can compete or become an Olympic athlete, right? And include myself, right? I mean, I wouldn't say I can't do it, but at the same time, too, the capacity for me to do that is you have to actually dedicate a whole lot of your life to that, right? So that's kind of like what it's saying here. For what purpose am I staying small? Right? Once you understand that, you'll understand you have to be asking yourself, how bigger can I get? Right? How much bigger can I what are the things that I'm avoiding? What are the challenges that I'm avoiding, I'm scared of, right? And then you have contribution over validation. Right? So you have contribution over validation. Right? So legacy is contribution, not applause. Right? You should be ashamed to die without contributing something significant to life. And I'm not holding anybody against that, but at the same time too, this is something where I believe if we're blessed with time, right? And we understand that number one, God has given us all this time in this life, right? We have to actually be able to end our life knowing that we contributed something to it, or we left something that will inspire the next generation. And when we look at Martin Luther King and what he did with his time, he's impacted generations past, even today, up until today. So, see, Martin Luther King didn't need everybody's approval, right? What he needed was alignment. Someone's opinion of you is not your reality, right? Because you're going to get a lot of pushback when you start doing things, when you start moving in a different way, right? So, I mean, if their opinion, the thing about it is you know yourself more than anybody else, right? You know who God made you to be. Nobody can tell you that, right? So someone's opinion of who you are is not your reality, because if they can track all the failures that you've done, right, they can also track your successes. Just always keep that in mind, right? Not all the time you are going to be validated by everyone. Not everyone is going to like what you're doing. Just keep that in mind. You're going to be moving sometimes by yourself, right? But at the same time, too, the opinions of others, right, is not the reality of who God made you to be, right? So remember that, because to whom much is given, much is required. And that's a Bible verse from Luke 12:48, right? And that's what it's telling you. The things that God has given you, is giving you life. He's giving you time. He's giving you so much things in abundance. The narrative out here might make you feel like you don't have enough, right? The narrative out here might make you feel like you don't have what you want, because now you're comparing your life to everybody else. Comparison is the enemy of happiness, as they say, right? Just like comfort is the enemy of success, comparison is the enemy of happiness. Now, comparing your life to go after something that somebody has is not a bad thing. But comparing your life to make the voice in your head make you feel like you're inadequate, right? That's where the problem lies, right? So, to whom much is given, much is required. You have an amazing life, and I want to tell everybody out there, if you woke up this morning you have an amazing opportunity to go after the things in your life in 2026. Doesn't matter where you're at. Just keep in mind, you can reinvent your life anytime, any place, right? As I said, wherever you go, there you are. It doesn't matter where you go, where you are. It's where you're showing up as and who you're showing up as, right? So you have the opportunity. People say it's hard to start over. No, you can start over. That's a beautiful thing about life and the time we have. If you have life and you have time and you have the ability, go after it, right? There's nothing out there that can stop you. You see, one of the things, ask yourself, if social media disappeared tomorrow, would my life still matter? That's a big question. That's the deep question right there. If social media disappeared tomorrow, would life still matter? Right? Now, there's a trend going on right now where people are posting social media pictures, I think they say from 2013, right? Because they say social media has changed where social media was a lot more fun, right? So now I mean I might give away my age, but I didn't grow up in my teens with social media, right? Our social media was the person with the most bikes in front of the house, right? In the neighborhood. Right? If we're driving around, we see, hey, this person there's all the bikes parked up in front of this person's house. This is where we go, and that's all social media, right? But at the same time, social media has become a huge part of who we are today. It's become part of our lives, right? Some people use it to their benefit, and some people use it to their detriment, right? Now, if it disappeared tomorrow, right? Because we saw what happened when Verizon went down, and people were all crazy about it, right? So I mean, it's kind of like if social media just blacked out tomorrow, would your life still matter? Right? Would you find the things? Because I mean, people, and the reason why I brought up the trend of people going back to 2013 and looking at pictures that was on social media to say it was more fun. It wasn't this comparison thing. People were actually using it to communicate. People were actually using it to communicate with people that haven't seen. It was like family reunions were happening on social media, college reunions, high school reunions. It was some similar to that. It was less stressful, right? There wasn't. I don't think there was things like algorithms and stuff back then, right? You had to go find people, right? It was used to find people back then and communicate with people you haven't seen in a while, right? But now there's all these algorithms on social media. People can post almost whatever they want, right? And so people are saying it's a little bit more stressful now than it was back in 2013. So things are changing, right? So that's why I go back to saying your time is valuable, right? Am I building something that serves or something that's just to showcase me, right? So, I mean, this is where we got to ask ourselves a lot of times. It's like, hey, am I building something to make sure that, I serve a purpose in this life? Or am I building something just to showcase me? And we go back to Martin Luther King and what he did, right? If social media was back then, right? A lot of people will ask, I mean, would we think he's building something to serve the people, or was he building something to showcase himself, right? But that's the thing about it, is that we all understand and know we beg to differ, which is he was building something to serve people, because we look at the results of it today. Right, we look at the impact that was made across the world. And see, one of the things that when I became president for California Association of Real Estate Brokers, we had a legislative day, and I told people my global perspective on a lot of things is it comes from the fact that, number one, I wouldn't be in this country, right, if it wasn't for the civil rights movement. And a lot of people don't pay homage to that enough. Right? Because we now seeing how important it is, especially right now. It's a topic of discussion right now, so we understand how important it is. But if it wasn't for the civil rights movement, a lot of people would not be able to be here. And that's how important the things and the little things that are happening right now are chipping away at that. Right? So number one, what he did and what he fought for was so much more bigger than just himself, right? Because a lot of people have benefited. A lot of people not only have benefited, but it has changed lives drastically across the world, right? So yes, ask yourself: are you building something that serves or something that just showcases me, right? Discipline, environment, and choice, right? So discipline, environment, and choice. You don't fake discipline, right? You can fake happiness, right? As you can see in social media, everybody shows their best side, right? Nobody shows a bad picture. I mean, even if some people are showing the worst side of themselves, it's still to actually get attention, right? I wouldn't say all the time, but most of the time, right? But you can't fake happiness. You can't. I said. No, I'm sorry. You could fake happiness, but you cannot fake discipline. There's some things in life you can fake, right? There's some things in life that you can show the good side of, right? But when he's with discipline and doing the things, there's receipts, as I always say to that. You have to show the receipts. Bring in environments. I mean, so let's look at it like this. Overachievers tend to be 15% plus in productivity. Underachievers tend to move towards 30%, right? So when you are overachieve in life, you'll find that those are the people that usually fall within the 15% of being productive. Underachievers usually fall within that 30%. So what it's basically saying, be careful who you trust because even salt looks like sugar, right? A lot of times, and that's the saying that we have back in the day. It's like, yeah, because you gotta be careful who you follow or who actually who is like, and that we're talking about social media here, right? Because at the end of the day, everybody can put out the best side of themselves on social media. It all looks the same, right? Until you ask for the receipts, right? So just keep that in mind. Be careful who you follow, or be careful who you trust, or be careful who is inspiring you, because even the salt tends to look like sugar when it comes down, until you taste it, until you actually indulge in it, right? Then you realize, oh, this is not what it seems, right? So that's one of the things that we always look at when it comes to the environment, discipline, and the choice, right? So something that I heard one of the influencers saying on social media is that how do you actually find something that's passionate and then you turn that into, you monetize it, right? So one of the things is this, is that he said you got to pay attention. Always ask, how can you make it better, right? So if you're looking to actually monetize anything, which is start a business, looking at you have some skills that you think you can actually go out there and actually make it work for yourself, or build a business off of those skills, or build a business off of those abilities. There's three things. One is you pay attention. You pay attention. Always ask, how can you make it better? Or if you're looking for something that you can actually do where you can actually make it better, and you know you can apply the skills you have to it. You see, the thing about it is that we live in a world where it's full of narratives, and that those narratives put us in a place like almost like a box in the way we should think, where opportunities are always out there, right? Just keep in mind, and I'll give you an example. Up until 1940s, right? I think they say that the horse and carriage was something that was used for transportation, right? Now we go from maybe between 1920 and 1940s. We go from the 1940s to maybe the 1980s, and all transportation was cars, gasoline cars, right? Now we go from the 1990s all the way up to now, and we're seeing the shift where we're moving from gas to electric. So it's not too far away, and there's some people who are still who that it's not too far away. And when you're seeing time actually changes and things are changing, how we actually think, right? Because keep in mind, our mode of transportation back then was when I was growing up was gas cars, right? Now we have electric cars, and that's how mode of transportation. So think about time changes things, and we actually fit up. We start thinking like that. Think about what we grew up without the. I graduated high school without the internet, so I went to school without it. Right, my through high school, through junior high, through kindergarten, we didn't have the internet. Now you need it in order for you to go to school. Right? So now innovation changes, right? But the thing about it is that it's always becoming better because you know what happened is somebody came in and said, how can I make this better? That's all they asked. That's the only question that was asked. How can I make this experience better? How can I make this product better? How can I make um, this service a lot better? Right? So if you have something that you want to do, all you got to do is learn how you can make it better. Right? And then be around people who are doing the things that you want to do, which is basically just be around successful people. Right? Try to be around the people who are pushing, going after their goals. Right? Not only are you going to learn something, but you can also teach them something. You can also synergize with them, collaborate with them, be part of organizations where they have the same mission, right? You'll find that those are the high level thinkers, the high level producers. They're going to be able to teach now. And the thing about it now is that you don't have to be physically there anymore. You can join these groups, right? You can join these groups. That's why I always say college is important, right? Not everybody grew up with the level of skills that your environment would teach you how to be a high performer, right? So that's why college is needed for some. For others, it might just be an experience, right? Because they're in that environment. But for others, yes, you do need something, an environment, or to be around people who are going after goals and they're teaching you how to perform at a high level. You don't need it only in college, but you need it also in business. You want to be around those people, right? And don't be somebody who has an ego, basically. A lot of times success comes with humility, right? Because if you don't have humility, most likely you're not open to learn. Like most people will say, that person is not coachable, right? It's like I always tell everybody is this. I would never want to be in a room and I'm the smartest person in that room, right? Because I realize right away that I'm not being challenged, right? It's like people who are always going to tell you you're right or yes. They're not going to challenge your way of thinking. They're not going to, because that's the only way you can learn, right? As I said, if I'm the smartest person in the room, that room is not for me, right? So at the end of the day, for me, a lot of people's biggest obstacle in going after success and gaining success a lot of times is ego, right? That's ego's almost like poison. Sometimes you don't even know you have it until it's too late, right? So at the end of the day, you always want to be in a place where, number one, or have a mindset where you're open to learn. I believe I can learn something from everybody. Everybody new I encounter, I can learn something from them, right? So always be open to learn, right? And ask yourself, if my environment is sharpening me or sedating me, right? So basically what it's saying is your environment making you better, making you sharper, right? Or is it making you duller, right? So this, as I say, they're saying iron sharpens iron, right? So in order for you to be effective, if you have a knife, you have to sharpen it. You know, if you wanted to cut anything and you wanted to use it effectively and efficiently, you have to sharpen it. Or a dull knife will always slow you down, right? Especially when you want to use it for what it's supposed to be used for, right? So always ask it, is your environment there to sharpen you, or is it there to just sedate you? And am I consuming information or applying it, right? So it's not just you being in a position to learn. Implementation of knowledge is power, not knowledge, right? Because there's a lot of people. I remember working as a college counselor at a school, and I didn't even know that myself until I started working at a college. You only need 120 credits to graduate with a bachelor's degree, right? I remember when I was going to college, I was just following what my college counselor was telling me and taking the classes, right? But then you'll see that there's some people who came who I was counseling as a college counselor, and some of them had 200, 300 credits and no degree yet, right? So you ask yourself, number one, is why? Why does that person have 300 credits, right, or over 120? That's almost double the amount, and they have no bachelor's degree to show for it, right? This is where you see somebody who likes consuming information, right? There's something there that we have to fix, where now we have to shift your mindset to now, hey, if you apply all this information that you get, you can get a return on your investment, which now you can actually be able to go into the job market and find a job that will give you the returns back on what you're paying. Because now you're spending money and spending time on these classes. These classes are not free, right? And these classes are built around a 4-year curriculum, right? So if you're 5-6 years in college with 300 credits, something is wrong. Now, I'm not saying these things don't happen, life doesn't happen, but at the same time too, what I'm saying is that at a certain point, you'll want to actually see that, number one, you made an investment, you want to start working to get those returns on the investment. And that's everything with knowledge. That's how knowledge works. Knowledge is power once it's implemented the right way, right? So am I consuming information, or am I applying it? That's one of the things we always want to ask. So now, since we talked about ego, we're going to go on to communication, ego, and flexibility, right? And how we accomplish our purpose in 2026 and going after our purpose in 2026, right? How we get rid of our old self, control or delete our old selves, and create a new screen for ourselves in 2026. See, the same mastery of anything requires flexibility, right? There's a saying that, well, there's a theory called the requisite variety, right? It says the person with the most flexibility or behavior controls the system, right? And as I said, things do change over time. Adaptability is so important, because we not only moving from social media, we now in a place where there's artificial intelligence, right? And that's something that a lot of us are even scared of right now, right? Because it's not like we don't understand it, but I'll tell you, I'll tell you this. AI is the smartest tool right now, smarter than any human being, right? It's smarter, faster, more efficient, right? So one of the things that we have to understand is the people who control the systems in life that are being created for us as consumers are the ones with the most flexibility. They're the ones who pick up on the new skills and new trends out there, right? They're able to not only be flexible on their communication, but on their behaviors, right? They're the ones who control the system out there. So just keep in mind, once we understand the law of requisite variety, we understand that, number one, there's no resistant people out there. There's just inflexible people, right? It's just like communication. There's no resistant communicators. It's just inflexible communication, right? So if one of the things that we have to understand is that you being resistant against change means that most of the time you're just not a flexible person. It's not like you don't like change, it's just that you're not willing to be a flexible person or adaptable to the change, right? But keep in mind that being flexible gives you control over the systems that are being created. So always remember that if you want to go after your goals in 2026, you have to be flexible. You have to be able to adapt and learn new things and be quick. Don't win. See, one of the things we all try to do because of our egos is we try to win arguments. Don't win the argument at the expense of the relationship. And that's something you can apply to even your relationship, business, personal, marriage, right? Don't try to win the argument, right, in the expense of the relationship, right? Sometimes it's good to just say, you win, walk away, right? We'll fight. We live to fight another day, right? Now, this is where sometimes it's not even worth it to argue, all right? We've seen a lot of that right now, right? We've seen a lot of that right now, people going against each other, right? And sometimes it's just, okay, don't win the argument at the expense of the relationship, right? Because we know, as I said, at the end of the day, it's going to pan out the way it's supposed to pan out, right? So sometimes it's good to just walk away and save your peace. Your peace is very, very important when it comes to flexibility, right? So you have to be flexible sometimes. Sometimes some people are good at just arguing. They're debaters, right? But sometimes some people are debating wrong. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't matter how loud you say it or how soft you say it. If you're wrong, it's wrong, right? At the end of the day, you understand? Walk away, save your peace. People are not their behaviors, right? So that's a hard one for me to swallow a lot of times, right? People are not their behaviors. And what it's basically saying is that the person, as I said in the beginning, is like wherever you go, there you are. You are, wherever you go in this world, you are going to be there. You're going to bring yourself with you, right? But you have a choice with how you actually, what you do when you get there, right? So your behaviors are going to be determined by your choices that you make. So you can, it's easier to accept the person and not their behaviors. This doesn't mean that accepting somebody's behavior doesn't mean that you reject the person. Rejecting somebody's behavior doesn't mean that you reject the person, right? So at the same time, too, it's kind of like people are not the behaviors. You try to change the behavior of the person, not the person. To say trying to change somebody is almost impossible. You know what I'm saying? But you can actually put a boundary on their behavior. That's something that you can do, right? But changing that person is almost impossible. They have to want to change. But you can control whether you want to accept. That's the choice you have. That's the control you have. So people are not their behaviors. Once you can separate somebody's behavior from who they really are, right? You'll understand, number one, you can't change somebody. You can only change their behaviors. Put your ego aside. That's more important. Your ego is either sometimes you got to choose your ego or the outcome. So one of the things I want to ask yourself, you got to ask yourself is, where am I trying to be right instead of effective? Right? 2026. Where are you trying to be right in 2026 or prove a point in 2026 and then be effective? Right? Am I increasing choice or shrinking it? That's important. That's very important. You see, any system that's put in place, somebody told me in business, is there to create more choices, not reduce them. Right? So if you have a system and it's limiting your choices, number one, it's most likely a system that's going to actually cause you to shrink. Right? So, any system that you put in place, life's, business, spiritual, it creates more choices for you, right? It doesn't put you in a box. So now we're closing off with Control Alt Delete, right? So Control yourself, alter your thinking, and delete negative thinking and negative people. That's what we mean by control, alt, delete. In 2026, if you want a new page in life, it's just like if you want a new page in your computer, you need to use these tools effectively. Control yourself, alter your thinking, and delete negative thinking and negative people. Right? So you don't give up, get up, right? So one of my favorite verses, and this is one of my second thing that I say to myself. What are some of the things that I tell myself, right? It's this verse here, Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's a powerful, impactful verse in the Bible for me, right? Because saying you can do all things. It's very straightforward, very simple. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Because I know, number one, if I'm made by God, I'm powerful, right? I just got to tap into that power. So some of the things that you want to live by, right? And some of the things that you want to live by is, as you go into 2026, is if I say it, I do it, right? Don't be that person, because I would say this, as most men will all say to each other, your word is all we have. And especially in business, your word is all you have, right? So if you say it, you got to do it. Just like Nike, just do it. Nobody's coming to save me, right? Nobody is going to come save you. And once you understand that, you understand what you need to do. You understand that God's given you every single thing, every ability. As I said, if you woke up this morning and you have breath and you have life, you have power, all right? You can tap into that anytime, knowing that nobody's coming to save you, right? I am pissed off I don't have the life I want. Be angry, not at people who have the life you want. Be angry at yourself that you don't have the life you want. Changes your perspective, right? Because a lot of times what we see out there and what social media creates, as I said, is we get angry at the people out there who have the life we want, right? Or showing us that this is the life we want, right? So it's not a bad thing. As I said, if you see something that you want, you have the ability to go after it. So as I end up, and then I believe I can do anything. So in summary, as we end, because I only have a minute, right? In summary, as we end, I just want to say, hey, 2026 is here, right? Your passion isn't random. It's evidence of responsibility. The difference between where you are and who you want to be is who you are willing to become. Confidence breeds success. Success breeds confidence. So stop sandbagging your success. Live a life of contribution, just like Dr. Martin Luther King did. And remember, you don't need permission to pursue your purpose. Peace.